And I will have it show you what you did do.
Yeah, right here maybe.
But
There sometimes these will actually sync with Strava. So if you click here, you can say, I want to.
it was on there yesterday.
Profile. There you go. That one.
Okay.
It was just you and me and her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
Anyway, I'll
get
used to it.
Give it a try on that. Yeah, you always just start from the watch, start and end from the watch, and then it puts it in there.
Oh, cool.
Make sure your phone connects.
No, okay.
Yeah, I'll get Strava user right here.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
All I gotta do is
Move. I just gotta move. Do some hiking around.
Yeah.
You know, it really did feel good.
Oh, it's Glacier.
Oh my gosh, it was so awesome.
All right.
Yeah. It was.
Had you been there before?
No,
Oh, okay.
looks like Switzerland. It's really queer.
I know. It's beautiful.
It's weird. It's just different. How's that?
Yeah. Big mountains, but not very high.
Uh,
I think the highest in there is like 8,000.
yeah, it's not very high. We
Yeah.
hiked around there. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how high it is, but it looks like it's, yeah, just different. Wow. Four, with us, good. They're all leaving. Get them here and then they leave.
Not gonna hold them out right away.
I'm supposed to like spin it. That's supposed to go away.
All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Welcome to the 4 p.m. joint work session on June 10th, 2025. Please note that all council members are here except for Councilmember Myers and Councilmember Jaburkin. And my guess is
Angela's online.
oh, Angela's online. Okay. Angela, if you're online and want to say hi, please do so.
Hello, I'll be there soon. Thank you.
She's driving, maybe she can't.
Well, we could have just an audio issue and like we've had.
No.
Okay, we'll keep checking back in with her. And I'm sure that Councilmember Myers will be here shortly. We have a really full agenda tonight. I just like saying that. We really don't have much.
3 meetings.
Huh?
3 meetings.
3 meetings, that's
Yeah.
it, full agenda. Any questions, the annual action plan amendments? Anybody have any questions regarding that? Dave, you? Okay.
Not so far.
Okay, and then we have adopting both the RDA budget and the MBA budget, or the Municipal Polling Authority's budget. Questions regarding that? All right. Do you have anything on the agenda? You were looking at your packet, that's why I was.
No.
Okay. All right, with that, let's just keep moving through our work session agenda. The first thing is Glenn Symes. And once again, it's too early to eat, so.
It's time to eat. It's pretty early.
You tricked us.
Go later in the agenda next time. Well, this will be pretty quick. This is just a check-in of the Schedule A1 changes. We talked through all of those last week, and the attached document that you have in your packet includes all of those changes that Justin talked about. It includes the trail money, and it includes the 2% merit instead of the 1.5% merit increase. So, like I said, this is a check-in. Do you have any questions, any concerns, any issues before we go ahead with the final packet material later this week for next week?
I think Rich and I have reached out to you guys a couple of times regarding those kind of things, so that sounds like we're pretty good.
Okay. On page 7 of my memo, it does provide a bit of a description. Like I said, the Schedule A1 document is in your packet as well, if you want to look at that, if you have any questions. That I'll head back over there, unless you have any questions.
They may come up throughout the day, right? All right. Budget message, Brandon.
Keep this quick as well.
Well, no, you guys can talk for a
Yeah.
while. We're good.
So each year, as you know, sorry, I'm just trying to get set up here. It is Eric and my responsibility to put together the budget message, which is kind of the council's review, just a high level overview of what's included in the budget and how it addresses the strategic directives, even though those are at this point outdated, but still relevant. As soon as I find, okay, here we go. I'm going to share what we got going on, because traditionally we've just had we've made a PDF document, and that is no longer the case. We are working with admin to incorporate into ClearGov, which is a really user-friendly interface that contains a lot of information and data, and it's all centralized. So instead of me bugging Justin for numbers to make sure that what I have is accurate with the Schedule A1 changes, I can just go get the numbers myself and put them in there. So I'm sure Justin's relieved that I don't have to bother him as much. I'm sure every year he expects that email from me like, hey, are these right? So this is, and it's a little more interactive as well. So we start with the message from the chair, and I've emailed this out to you, and that's why the draft was so archaic looking, right? It's just a Word document, but it was just the content, the bones for this. So when you get a chance to review that and let me know if you have any suggestions or changes, I would appreciate that. And we will have different subsections as well on the left side, so people can skip and go to different things. And this will be a part of the full adopted budget towards the beginning. And so what's really cool about this compared to the PDFs that we've done in the past is that these are more interactive. So you can really see which department correlates with the slice of donut here. I think pie charts are fine, but I think donuts are better. But so this is the same information that we've provided before in the budget message, but just a little more, again, user friendly. So and again, because this is also a new platform for us, we are kind of adopting, what we've done stylistically to this, where it's kind of, we have our guardrails as to what we can and can't do. So we're still kind of playing around with that. But yeah, just to start off, I talked about the message from the chair, just kind of a high level overview, talked about the merit increases and COLA increases, general fund revenues and expenditures, the total city budget revenues and expenditures. There's a review of the 5-year strategic plan and a brief description of the strategic directives, acknowledging that this was adopted 6 years ago, so that it is outdated. However, was that survey done? Kind of see that those strategic directives are still relevant. Then we mentioned the property tax disbursement. This is for last year, so that our residents can get an idea of how much of their taxes go to Ogden City and the other collecting entities. the budget highlights, and we're gonna glam this up a little bit. Just talks about the COLA increases as well as the merit and step increases as well are talked about there. The CIP kind of talks about the heavy hitters there here as well. And then we go into the strategic directives, talking about economic development and the different things happening as the city addresses housing, how it supports business, progress at the airport, progress with transportation, and then quotes from different council members about those topics as well. Section on community safety, talking about police and fire and the different things that are being funded there. Obviously, the step increases are mentioned here again as well. Talking about different infrastructure improvements as well, both cities' utilities, because the strategic directives, although it is community safety, people automatically default that to police and fire, but it's much bigger than that, and this kind of explains that. Recreation, obviously the Marshall White Center is a big item to talk about there, and funding for its operation is addressed there, as well as ongoing projects and different things around the city. And then city image and reputation, speaking about the Union Station, other upgrades throughout the city. And while it's not a strategic directive, fiscal sustainability and transparency is a priority to the council as it considers and reviews the budget. And so that's it in a nutshell. Very, very fast overview, but just allows residents to see how different things in the directives are being addressed in the budget. With that, are there any questions?
Any questions? So can people download that and do stuff
Yeah.
with it and
So
send it to their closest friends, or?
what we were looking at was just a preview. This is not publicly available yet, but once we get everything sorted and put together, it will be. And what's really cool about ClearGov is you can choose different sections you want to have exported as a PDF if you want, or you can just send a link to the ClearGov webpage. Yes, and then people can navigate and go through it. It's super accessible. So it's not very mobile friendly. You do have to rotate your phone to be landscape mode to get a better, optimal viewing. But yeah. Okay, if I don't hear back from you with your the sections that I've assigned, then I'll just assume that we're good to go.
You have till Thursday at noon.
You heard it here. Thanks.
Okay, Thursday at noon. All right.
Oh.
Janine, goals and guidelines.
Yeah. So I started making a presentation and I thought it probably will just be easier to scroll through the red line version of this. So that's what I'm gonna do.
I gotta share it to Zoom really quick. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Sorry. I'm trying to hide the controls so you have more. Oh, that works. Okay, all yours.
Okay. So a lot of the changes, wait, how do I scroll?
I think if you just click and drag, yeah. Do you want the mouse?
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. That we hopefully fix.
Okay.
There we go.
So some of the changes are just sort of wording and maybe just some language that I thought was better. So in this section, I just clarified that the strategic plan has basically expired, but that we're working on still using it as a filter until it's replaced. And if you recall, we're waiting to kind of craft that strategic plan until we have the general plan done. And that's actually out a little ways. But we thought after looking at some other strategic plans that other cities have, a lot of them include those other documents, as well as CIP. So we're just kind of waiting on that, but agreement with the administration is they're still abiding by those 5 strategic initiatives that were outlined in that initial 5-year strategic plan. It's changing the years. There we go. Any changes there? Just a language change. This is just some clarification. The financial reporting for the RDA, it used to come with the RDA report, and then we decided to just have that comes as part of the annual comprehensive financial report that's included in that. And so the annual report from the RDA does include some general numbers, but not specific. And so I just made that clear here. So budget goals, this is where most of the changes occurred, and mostly just sort of updating, because generally speaking, the goals sort of remain the same, as you don't want the city to burn down, basically, right? So just quality neighborhoods, just continued implementation of the Make Ogden plan. Community safety, I just included maintain competitive public safety salaries and benefits. For recreation, I added including parks as part of something that's a priority. City image, I added planning for the new 24th Street interchange and the 2034 Winter Olympics. We haven't specifically discussed that, but it's been on everybody's mind for sure, and something that probably can't happen soon enough, right? So 9 years isn't very long when we're talking city projects. With the fiscal sustainability, I just kind of added maintain competitive general employee salaries and sustainable rate structure, just to make sure that we're keeping up with paying for the things that need to be paid for. Again, just some language about updating the strategic plan. So economic development, just some language changes there. I didn't really add anything, just added a sales tax revenue down at there. I don't know why it wasn't in there before. Maintain competitive safety salaries. I added here under the police department, provide resources to reduce crime, disruptive public behavior, including noise ordinance violations. We're going to be working on that this upcoming year to see if we can make some changes to the current ordinance that affects some change for people. Under recreation, since we have completed Marshall White, I did update that. I think the next big recreation project will be 4th Street Ballpark and a North Side Recreation Center. I think we're sort of evaluating options there. For city image and reputation, again, I added the 2034 Olympics. Added just the well-being citizen survey reference. I took out the sustainable energy position because we did that last year. Again, maintaining salaries. And I did maintain current staffing levels, and if appropriate, consider reducing the number of city services. I know that the administration is spending a lot of time evaluating efficiencies and staffing levels to see if there needs to be some changes in order to be more effectively spend taxpayer dollars. And so that is it. I don't know if you have any other things you want to add. Like I said, a lot of the goals stay the same just because that's, you know, it takes a long time to get things done the right way.
Gene, I just question, I don't know if where it would fit necessarily in here. The thing, what stuck out to me on the citizen survey that we had was just feeling safe in that community. And we know the metrics all show that crime is down or is down from prior years. Is there a place, do we want to highlight that in here somehow, that, you know, that maybe a follow-up to understand why somebody might not feel safe? I know we've had this conversation before about a follow-up survey and, you know, if you experience crime or been involved somehow, but again, I don't know if that needs to be necessarily stated in here. It might be under the community safety, maybe
And it's almost maybe sort of city image and reputation.
Oh yeah, maybe that's it.
Right,
Yeah.
maybe that's where it fits. And yeah, certainly we can add that as it's certainly additional goals. I don't know if it's a budget goal per se.
Right.
But we have these other initiatives that came out of the strategic plan. Be happy to add something in there about following up. And in terms of following up, I have contacted the OPD. They wanted to review the flash vote questions that we had and just haven't heard back from them. So I'll follow up with them.
Okay. I just feel like if it's in there, it stays top of mind and something that we're definitely trying to understand.
And I did
to address.
reference the citizen survey here.
Yeah.
And so maybe I could put it in there as well, just to follow up, because I think they do them every other year. And I know that Utah State said that they would be doing one in 26 if they have the funding available to do it. Okay.
And I was just gonna ask, under recreation, is it an appropriate place to slot in the recent conversations around trails both up near Mount Ogden Golf Course, our paved and unpaved trails, and then in your leadership notes and in my conversation with the mayor, there's a priority around up the canyon for the trail as well. So I wonder if that helps keep things kind of front of mind as too.
Okay. Yeah, certainly we can add that because we are a budget goal, because there is some additional money being funded for that. So I will put that. Do you want that as a priority or as an additional?
If you're asking me, priority.
If I put it on a priority, is that okay for everybody? Okay.
I think so.
Thank you.
And under fiscal sustainability, whatever, that in transport. I'm gonna say this.
You're fine.
But can we move, I mean, we have been talking about this for way too long as far as the comprehensive and financial sustainability model. And I would just really like to move it up to a budget priority for 2026. If not, it just gets continued to push down and push down and push down. And I mean, we're facing it right now. You know, we're in the middle of trying to figure out how to continue the sustainability piece of, you know, employee salaries. And it's just hard to do that. I mean, with just
I second that.
budgeting for the now, and we need to figure out how to budget for the future. And so,
Marcia, were you on the Zoom meeting, WFRC Active Transportation
I wasn't
thing today? You know, the mayor of Syracuse kind of went on and on and on about what they're pinched in around their infrastructure against the backdrop of their growth. And it's a really difficult set of circumstances for that city. And I chimed in, you know, and the chat part and said, you know, it's not any different for us. He's gonna challenge the state to take, because we're limited with our state tax collections, where they had more tax money, and rather than rebate that back, highlight that money and set it aside for cities to write grants for, to help them offset infrastructure costs. I said it's not just growing cities. I said it's legacy cities too. We've got a sprawling infrastructure system that's old and expensive to maintain and that sort of thing. So it's just the cities are taking on growth. But I think some understanding of how we do that going forward through a document that is some sustainability related financial planning is really important. I agree with you.
And I guess I'm just tired of saying it and not getting anywhere with it. So we need that. I mean, I think, and I don't know, I know that it didn't look right before, but we've been working on it for a while. So, and anyways, we can start even with baby steps would be good.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I don't see up there, and I'm gonna use Angela's word, dashboards. I don't see it as additional budget goal or anything.
That's good.
KPIs, right?
Yeah, the KPIs
Yeah.
are coming. I know I've talked to
Yeah.
the mayor and they're coming. But I think I think that would help too. Ken, when we talk about safety, I think people don't realize, I mean, if
Yeah.
we just even had that
They could see
slide
that,
up
yeah.
that, of how the part one crimes are going down, I think that would be great. I mean, we could tell people that it's going down.
Yep.
Well, I think it's just seeing those, you might experience something and feel like, man, nobody's ever doing anything about this particular issue. But if you can see that it is being addressed, or there are reports of
Right.
whatever it is, noise ordinance violations that are being followed up on, and people can say, oh, there is, it's not like it's just being ignored altogether. There is something being done.
I was just gonna say, you can just start with the annual, whatever the goal is, to start there, and then later you can start building in some of the things.
More
to
dynamic.
Get to that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for getting me off on that.
Okay, those are all really great suggestions. Anything else?
What does it say about city utilities as well?
Utilities, let's see, where's
Oh,
that?
you were just there.
You were there.
Sorry.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I
It's
just
just one line.
down a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Evaluate utility rates and infrastructure improvement needs to ensure long-term financial health. This is kind of an ongoing thing that the council in 24 did approve that additional 4% for 5 years. Although I did ask about whether that was really going to be ongoing, and they didn't necessarily say yes, but they said probably in so many words.
So we don't model beyond 5 years,
Yeah.
basically.
Fred.
Well, if you think of anything else between now and Thursday at noon, let me know and I will get it out of them. Thank you.
Great. All right, that was Justin Sorensen, you're up. Oh, there he is. I didn't see him, so.
Thanks, Chair. Wouldn't be a budget meeting if I wasn't here, right?
Right?
It wouldn't be.
So the two items on work session tonight to discuss are related to this fiscal year. These are a couple final cleanup items that we didn't get in the last budget opening that was adopted a few weeks ago. And so this is the final one. We need to do a little cleanup. But I apologize about that. So I just go through what things are proposed. A lot of these are cleanup items or some other recognitions of grants. So if you have any questions while I'm discussing, please feel free to stop me. And hopefully I can answer those for you. So to begin with, in the general fund, there's a couple changes that we want to propose, moving some funds out of the contingency account. We're proposing to move $7,000 to a management services professional technical account to be able to use with our software that we use for contract management. We're also looking to use to be able to use for transmittals, administrative transmittals. And so there's a cost to be able to work through that. So proposing to move $7,000 to be able to use for that project. And then also under legal, proposing to move $30,000 to their professional and technical. Their document management system they currently use is being discontinued. And so they're needing some funds to be able to go out and find a replacement for that. So we're proposing to move $30,000 from contingency over there. Under CED, we're proposing to increase both revenue and expense by $13,000 for the Accelerator Wasatch event that was held a few weeks ago. So this is to recognize the funds that they received and then the expenses associated with it. And then under public services, the proposal is to increase the revenues by $11,875 for donations that have been received that are related to putting on swimming lessons for youth. And so the expenditure side is to increase $1,875 for supplies related to it, and then $10,000 for temporary wages, as those are the ones that are helping with putting on those swimming lessons for these.
Justin, why is it defined as temporary, or what is it that?
Part-time wages,
Temporary employees.
Yeah, temporary employees.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. So the part-time wages so they pay part-time employees to do those swimming lessons.
Okay.
So that's a total increase in the general fund of $24,875. In the CIP fund, we have the ramps that were received this year from the county. So the match has already been appropriated for the city match. This is recognizing the ramps that were awarded. So we have the Bonneville Park backstops and ball fields improvements of $162,875. We have the Lester Park playground enhancements of $200,000, and then also $200,000 for pickleball courts at Lester Park and Golden Hours. We also are proposing to increase revenue and expense revenues we're receiving from UDOT related to a geotechnical study at Valley Drive that they're funding. So we're increasing to recognize that. And then the last one related to the new markets tax credit. Now that we know what that amount was, that we'll be able to help with the final portion of the Marshall White Center. So this is recognizing the $2,123,500 that will help with I want to say the outside area, the
Landscaping.
landscaping, that's the word. I sit here and I forget words, so thank you.
I'm glad that happens to you too. I tell you.
All the time. So that's recognizing those funds that we have for that. And so that's a total increase of $2,711,375 in the CIP fund.
Justin, before you go on,
Yes.
did you say the Accelerate Wasatch event, that's money we received?
Yeah, so when they put on the event, they had some sponsorships that paid for
Okay.
part of the event.
Okay.
And
So we didn't charge people to?
no,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
it was for sponsorships that we received.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. In the water fund, this is a true up in their budget. So with the Canyon pipeline project that's going on during the winter, they had to run the treatment plant. I be honest, don't know all this, but they had to run the treatment plant additionally while parts of the project was happening, which caused them to have to spend more money on chemicals. And so we're proposing to use some of the retained earnings in the water fund to cover that additional expense.
Will that be an expense ongoing while the
No,
water line is being reconstructed?
It was just when they took the well filled off line to build that line from
Right,
the boat dock area to the
Right.
to the plant. So
Yeah, so this last year was the year that we would experience that.
okay. And how about when they do the pipeline underneath the reservoir? That will interrupt,
they'll have to treat water there too for that again.
yeah,
Yeah, so there may be some additional expense next year that we may have to come back and we'll monitor that. And then if we need to raise some additional funds out of their retained earnings, then we'll come for you.
okay, and that comes from that enterprise fund in
Correct. Yep.
specific,
Funds.
okay.
Yep, correct. In the storm utility, this is recognizing some grants. So another ramp that we received from the county related to the Surf Wave project. We've got a couple other sources for that, but this is recognizing the 491,000 that's being received from the county for that project. And then we also received some federal funds and state funds for an OSG grant, and it's a hardship grant that's been received and related, and it's being used for some improvements of the 3300 South Retention Basin. So that's 140,000 that we received in federal funds and 35,000 in state funds. So total increase to the storm utility of 666,875. The medical fund, this is another grant that we've received, a per capita grant that we received. So we're proposing to recognize that. They use this to purchase supplies, 8,350. In our internal service funds for both fleet and facilities and IT on the next slide, we're proposing to increase their budgets. Each year we try to estimate what revenue they'll receive and what expenditures they're going to experience when they purchase items as an internal service they're purchasing and then charging back to departments for these are facilities related in IT for IT equipment. And so we, at the end of the year, will come and propose to increase those budgets based on what's actually happened during the year. So we're proposing to increase the facilities fund by 400,000 and the IT fund by 500,000 to be able to account for the revenue and the expenses that have been recognized in those two internal service funds. And then the last portion of this budget opening is our miscellaneous grants, another handful of grants that we're proposing to recognize. We have the opportunity to reach some. So we have I don't know if you recall last year, one of the art projects that was authorized was the Kiesel Avenue, to be able to redo some of that with the wires where the kites were. We're potentially getting some funds from Visit Ogden that's a pass through from the state. And so we're proposing to recognize those funds that will help with that project. We're also getting funding, federal funds for the National Park Services certified local government project, which is, and I want to make sure I say right what it was for. Right here. We already have the match for this, but it's to be able to use for the Maryland Drive Historic District preparation for the national registration nomination is what those funds will be used for. So that's what that 10,000 is. We also received 10,000 or 27,000 from the state for the No by State grant, which is to help additional funds to help with the homeless related expenses. Fire also received a grant, a lockbox grant to help as with different fire prevention related expenses. And then the last one is the running up for air race donations that were received. We're proposing to recognize that in the budget. And then in speaking with Lorenzo, they're looking to use those funds to be able to install air quality monitors throughout the city.
All right.
So that's what the proposal with those funds would come from. So with that, the total increase in the grants fund is 77,825, giving us a grand total of 4,689,300 increase to the budget to end the year. Any questions on any of those items?
You have one?
Yes.
Under the UDOT lockbox grant for fire prevention, that doesn't go into the fire safety budget. That is a separate line item underneath, just in the general fund, or?
It's in our miscellaneous grants. So we try to track most of our grants through our fund to keep them separate. And so we track the funds coming in and then the expenses going out to make sure that the expenses are appropriate for what the grant was awarded for.
So help me remember. The police department last year got real close to $6 million in grants that they didn't quite hit that 6 million mark. I cannot remember where that, or the presentation on that. Is that a presentation that has also shown to us the income that they receive? I'm trying to remember, and I'm just kind of falling short, although I hear it when we are with police.
So I believe Chief Subier, Deputy Chief Ziegler in his presentation talked about what grants they've applied for and what's been awarded. A large amount of that is related to the state mitigation funds that were received. That's a big portion of that. And then in the budget opening that was adopted a month or so ago, that included a lot of police
items.
Police grants.
So forgive me for my failure to remember that. I just saw that fire prevention expense, and I didn't know where that fell under fire department or?
Yeah, so we have a separate fund in our accounting where we try to track a lot of these grants. To be able to keep it separate, so yeah, it doesn't flow into necessarily the general fund.
Okay.
In reporting, we merge them together, but for accounting, we track it separately.
Thank you.
Just make a comment on that last item. This is awesome. So that race, the Running Up for Air, has been going on for I think 6 years in our community. And the donations they've received in past have gone to support efforts statewide, generally down in the Salt Lake area. And Tara Warren, the race director, we connected with Lorenzo and Weber State, and they figure out a way to keep that money local here. And apparently we don't really have air quality. We might have 1 or 2 air quality monitors in Ogden. And so this will give us a better idea as to where the air quality is and what, how the air is moving through during those winter months. And so I was just really pleased to see that connection, we were able to get that connection, and we could keep the money that athletes this is from people participating, asking their friends and family to donate to support them as they engage in this activity and go up and down Malin's Peak a bunch of times. So pretty cool.
Thanks for running it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not a good memory for me, unfortunately. So
This year.
next year will be better.
So tell me again about the federal grants for planning. You said that it was going to the Maryland Drive.
That was the information provided to me from planning, so it's to recognize the National Park Service's CLG grant for the Maryland Drive Historic District in preparation for the National Registration nomination.
So I have a little concern. I know a lot of people on that street, and I'm not sure that anyone has been engaged in.
It's not just that street.
Yeah, around.
It's a big
big.
chunk of the
It's
neighborhood.
a huge
I'm-
area.
I'm concerned that I don't know if we put it in there and don't use it for that, or it doesn't, it goes away or something. What do we do different with that money then, I guess?
I'll have to follow up to see what the uses were.
I just know that,
Specifically on that.
from an engagement side, there are quite a few people that
But don't want to be part of it.
has not been received well.
Mhm.
Or they don't know, maybe they don't know more.
Yeah,
Maybe they need to know more.
They had a public,
I think they have a 2
And
at
I
public
don't-
school, I believe.
okay, and I don't know how well attended they were.
Very well
There
attended.
was a lot.
They were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Fact. Yep.
And did you get an,
So voices were heard.
Both sides.
both sides, yeah.
Yeah.
But I actually have had both sides as well, but I want to make sure that. maybe
But those who
we
were
do
not
that.
in favor were very vocal about it. There were several that were, there's plenty that were in favor as well.
Yeah, I'll get that
Just
information.
double check. I mean, I don't know if we leave it out of this amendment or what we need to do. Until we know more, maybe.
Well, maybe a good question for our planners would be, I know that when a home is put on a national register, it doesn't make any difference. There's no limitations on what they can do. Is that the same for an area?
My understanding is it is. Anything on the national register would be tax benefits, essentially. There's no historic protection in the national register. On the national register, that would be a local register issue.
So there's no downside, really.
Right.
So in addition to one's home, wouldn't have to be architecturally and historically matching the original home?
Right. If you were to alter the building, you just wouldn't be eligible for tax credits any longer than national register.
Okay.
So maybe just a communication of what it is
Yeah.
and what it is not.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
They
Well-
might also just be afraid that might lead to local.
Yeah.
Like the national, then maybe they're wondering what happens next. That might be a good thing to explore with them.
And I do believe there's some confusion because I think it was Sean that sent me a question from a constituent that said, hey, the city's trying to create an HOA in that
Oh.
area. And
Oh,
I'm
gee.
like,
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah,
the
that's,
city would not be creating an HOA, but I didn't know
Right.
about the meeting at the time. So
That's the rumor that was circulating
Yeah.
at that time.
and they might be worried about like what then the city's plans are for creating additional standards like we have in East Central or in the historic districts
Yeah.
or whatnot. painting brick.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, I'll reach out to planning and,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm okay with it being there, but if it's not used, then.
right.
What,
Probably would just have to return it,
Redo it.
don't you think?
Yeah, if it's funds that we've received and we don't use, then we would just have to return it. I'm not 100% familiar if it's a reimbursable one or if it's one that we've already collected, so.
I'm just asking, what does that mean not used? I mean, because I don't, that's not contingent on whether or not we actually create the historic district, is it? Or is it just to pursue and move it to actually go through the process of creating it?
I don't
That
know,
makes
it says
sense.
in preparation. or
Yeah.
something, So I don't.
Well, I'll get some more information and get it back.
Is that buying the plaques? I don't know. The arch that will go over it. I'm kidding.
A big bubble.
It's a big
I'm kidding.
Okay, that was everything with that budget opening.
Okay. Although we have council business and council comments, should we just let Dustin finish his RDA portion? Is that okay? Okay,
And then we'll eat.
and then we'll eat.
Just
Glenn will-
landing.
And then we will eat.
Yeah, if Glenn has something to say, it's time.
Just in the RDA, but we'll have council stuff. Yeah. You probably followed that.
And this one is
You've
a
been doing it
very
well.
large budget. A lot of information.
one budget opening with 48 slides.
Right?
Mhm.
I promise it won't be as long as the last.
Almost twice as much as the last.
All right, so this one is a one item for your consideration as a board. In the Adams area with the purchase of the Forest Service building, which was already approved. Proceeds that we used to be able to purchase those. This is the budget action to be able to recognize those proceeds. We did already do a budget opening back in December to recognize the earnest payment and the reimbursement agreement of $360,000. So this budget opening is only recognizing the rest of the proceeds. That's why it's not 3.6 million, but 3,240,000 because we've already recognized 360,000. So this is to recognize those bond proceeds. So it's 3,358,000 plus an additional 360 that was already recognized. But this budget opening in particular is only the 3,358,000 and recognizing both payments associated with those bonds as well as the amount needed to be able to purchase the building. Any questions on that? I believe both of these items will be considered next week. Is that correct, Janine?
This is a question that you probably have I don't know. When we get bonds issued, are they set for a certain time period? I mean, like the rate set for that certain time period? Or does it fluctuate at all?
It would depend on the bond if it had a variable rate or not, but if it's a fixed rate, then it would be.
And we do mostly, well.
I don't think I've ever done
I
it.
think we've only done fixed.
Yeah, I don't think
They're
we've
all
ever done.
fixed. Yeah, it's all
a
fixed,
variable.
so.
We did variable years and years ago when we did the Solomon Center, but everything else. is fixed.
Everything's fixed, okay. It's a little bit crazy.
But we have refinanced before.
That's been refunded.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
refunded, yes, over time, there's been several that's
Mhm.
refunded.
Great.
Thanks.
All right. Council business, board business, any business?
I do have one question for you, for the calendar. Well, actually two. So in August, OPD sponsors that night out against crime.
Oh.
And it has traditionally been on a Tuesday night. Long story, Tuesday, August 12th, which is when they would normally schedule it, is also the primary. And normally we wouldn't have a meeting that night because of the primary. but the question is, are you okay if they went ahead with the Night Out Against Crime? Would you still want to participate, or would it be more convenient for you, especially for those of you that are running, to do it on the, let's say the 14th, the Thursday?
How flexible are they?
Well, there was initially going to be a Twilight concert that night, so they were going to have to move it anyway to the they had agreed with the event people to move it to the 14th. So to me, that tells me that they're flexible. But like I said, that's the first time since I've been in this position that they've ever said they would move it.
That's on my calendar on the 14th already.
Right, because that's when it was scheduled.
Oh, I see.
But now there's not a Twilight concert,
I'm with you.
so. Any concerns? It'd be mostly impact those of you who are,
I would prefer to move it.
okay.
I'll just say that.
Yeah, I think anything that conflicts with somebody's getting off work and getting their ballot in, you know, I think it's probably a good idea to,
Yeah, I think so.
unless you could have drop boxes at the Night Out Against Crime.
There's drop boxes right
There
there.
are.
Yeah,
But the Night Out is sometimes a different location.
oh, right, yeah.
That's true.
The next date, so in July, we will not be meeting for the 22nd because that's a fourth Tuesday, or the 29th, which is a fifth Tuesday. In July, we will also not be meeting on August 8th, August 5th, because you'll just be returning
Jet lag.
from your trip. So that leaves the 12th and the 19th. Normally, we would do the canvas for the primary. We can do it, normally we would do it on the 26th, but Tracy said it could happen on the 19th. And I guess the question is, do you want to have a meeting on the 26th? Because basically would have one meeting in August if we didn't have that meeting. And the reason I'm asking, I just want to make sure, because right now it would show up on your calendars as free.
Can we fit it all in on the
19th.
19th?
Well, right now we don't have anything else scheduled, except we have a recognition scheduled. So yes, we could do the canvas on the 19th. And just have one meeting that month.
Folks, we're gonna have a very
Not the
long
12th?
meeting,
Oh, that's,
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be hanging out quite a bit together.
Yeah.
Won't be making any votes while we're gone. There.
I think we should try and keep it available if possible, if
Okay.
administration does end up having some things they need to put through there, and, you know, it's
I'll be
probably.
in town.
Put on our free, but there.
We'll just kind of make sure we.
I'll put it on as tentative.
There you go.
Tentative, yeah.
That's good. That's a good way to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one item, if we have time. It's all time.
I gotta hold it down to an hour and 5 minutes.
I think it'll be shorter.
Keep it short.
Okay, I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, with some small business owners. And, this is, an ongoing conversation that we have all the time with different folks, but, we were talking about, obviously they have noticed definitely that we've done some improvements on the administrative side of like trying to explain to people the process for getting small business licenses and everything. There is always challenges when it's something that also deals with the health department. So they're definitely saying that there can still be some improvements made, like what are the steps that need to take and like how long things will take and who do you need to talk to next? There was also an issue, and this has come up a couple times. I talked with Marcia about it a little bit, and this is not the first time we've heard about it. And they came up with some ideas for solutions. So I loved this conversation. There's a couple things that happen when you open a business that people are often surprised by. And it doesn't mean that we're responsible for telling them these things, but for example, there might be landscaping responsibilities that they have that they would never even realize because they're just planning their business. They're not thinking about whatever the outside looks like. Or like recently, a lot of restaurants have had to get new grease traps or these big infrastructure kind of expenses that wouldn't necessarily be in your business plan. So they were thinking and brought up this idea, and I thought it was a really great conversation around the interest rate on the business loans that we offer and how that's higher, and we understand the reasoning behind why we do that. But they were thinking, as we were talking about it, we brought up kind of the help loan and how that we actually make that lower so people can do these kinds of improvements on their residential dwellings. And the application process is relatively simple. So we were talking about, it would be interesting to throw out the idea of having like an infrastructure business loan that would be much lower interest, because these are often costs that aren't really built into their overall business plan. So I thought that was a really good idea to bring that forward as a solution or an idea. And then also we had a conversation about Ogden Downtown Alliance, because these businesses are ones that are operating downtown or in the greater downtown area. And anyway, that was an interesting conversation because, you know, ODA does a lot of really wonderful stuff, really great stuff. But the small business owners I was talking to, they feel like there's kind of this tension that ODA they don't feel. I know that I've heard that ODA does a lot of advocacy on behalf of the small businesses, but they were just kind of talking about how there's that tension there because ODA works for the city, but then a lot of small businesses feel being an advocate, and maybe if that organization was separate from the city in a different way. And I know it's its own not-for-profit. But anyway, it was just a really good conversation, so I thought I would just bring it up to this group to let you know. And again, these are conversations I've heard for the last 10 years, right, that have kind of gone around. So those were just different ideas.
Well, I know that there's those grease trap things were kind of recent, you know, I don't know why they kind of bubbled up like they did.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like just changing in the code. I don't know either, to be honest.
But that is a health
Heard that
department
often.
issue though, right? That's.
It may be, but they're just these issues that when these people are really trying to start these
I know.
grassroots level kind of
And
businesses.
they're using it, they're
Yeah.
going into a building that's been you
Mhm.
know, done something else with and.
Yeah, or it's historic
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, I know that's an issue and it is kind of a deal killer for
Yeah.
businesses. Yeah.
There's some that are waiting right now to get some of those things done that can't open, in my understanding.
So what is our BIC?
Yeah, I was
Do we have
gonna,
any sense of what the BIC does to help people over there?
No, everything. I know that they
Is it-
provide a lot of resources.
The
Yeah,
big-
so
Since they're part of the city, they ought to be helping people understand what the landscaping requirements gonna be, all the things that's gonna be required to have them have a business license that is viable.
I think so. And I think it's, but it's kind of like someone just comes up with an idea. They were just we were just talking about like, I was like, so, and because I'm not a small business person, so I don't know. So like, how do you plan a business? We're like, oh, well, we just come up with this idea. And I don't really want to highlight any particular one or anything, but let's say you're like, oh, I'm gonna have this little business. Oh, I'm gonna rent. So what they often do, they'll go rent a spot or something. And I don't know, those two things don't always align, right? Is that like, they don't know what spot they're gonna be in, but when they come up with the idea, so there's kind of these missing pieces, and then once they get the spot, there's often surprise things that they didn't realize they were gonna have to do. And I'm not saying it's all our responsibility to help them figure that out, just some solutions around how could we help to support them?
Well, there, just speaking from,
You are
speaking from
yeah,
experience, I know
Mhm,
when we opened ours,
mhm.
we planned like every other that I can see, every other gas station has, it's all concrete.
Mhm.
And so we just assumed that ours would be concrete where that is and then asphalt everywhere else. And when we were shocked when we came in and they're like, no, you have to have so much landscaping. So I totally agree. There is a disconnect there that sometimes you get.
Yeah. And I don't think it's all our responsibility.
And I agree, yeah,
totally.
I
It's
agree.
just like,
I
what
mean,
are
the
some things we
information's
could do?
there. We just, not everyone digs that
Mhm.
deep when they're trying to do that.
Yeah,
So
and
I
they
get
get
that.
themselves in really deep somehow. And again, like, I'm not putting the onus on us to be the solvers of this problem, but somehow they get themselves in so deep that then they can't even do it because of all these different complications. So anyway, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it'd be great to have like a quick start guide, but the challenge,
Yeah.
there's multiple.
But there,
things.
like if you're a
Yeah,
restaurant.
different areas.
And-
Yeah, for your gas
there's
station,
many
there's
variables
different
as far as-
regulations on all different kinds of businesses, whether you want to serve cooked food. I don't even know all the details, but I'm sure you have a lot to say about it.
Can't Archie tell them?
And, you know, if you go through, if you're a conditional use, you're seeking a conditional use permit for an existing piece of property. Sometimes those landscape requirements are gonna be defined
Mhm.
because they're a conditional use. So because they're a conditional use, those constraints can be placed upon them and it gets caught. But if
Yep.
somebody just buys a location and thinks they're going into business because it's zoned
Yep.
properly, it's not necessarily gonna be
I
the
mean,
case.
honestly, they don't even know anything about zoning, you know, because they're like making widgets or whatever, and so,
Right.
you know, like, that's what they're.
I mean, the zone Ogden
Mhm.
update is gonna change our landscaping requirements. That just kind of got a hunch.
Well, and just really quickly before Mary goes, I think another thing is like, okay, do they absolutely have to? Like, one example I'm thinking of is a space that people are trying to have a business in right now downtown. If you drive by there right now, it doesn't look great. I mean, the landscaping looks terrible. But why would they, could it be that they would have 6 months or 9 months or something to remedy that issue with putting in, you know, sprinklers and everything? Because obviously they're gonna clean it up to a certain extent to get people to come to the business. But I don't know why that would have to be a barrier to start opening, because then they're paying rent on this facility.
Yep.
And they're just going under every month.
Well,
because
additionally,
they-
the city, to be able to landscape anything, they require you to deposit some money in an escrow account that the city controls. They only refund it back to you once the landscaping is done.
Mhm.
It was kind of painful because you have to pay
Twice.
that twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and honestly, I totally understand why we want to have beautiful landscaping, but right now, if you drive by that property,
Mhm.
it'll be empty with nothing there and just horrific landscaping, so. I mean, is there an in-between? Anyway. It's a lot, I know.
When people are building a house, we give them, we don't make them do their landscaping if they try and get an occupancy permit in
Hmm,
December. You know, we let them, we give them some leeway.
or something.
You'd think that'd be something that could be done, but if I was the business though, I'd certainly want it done.
Yeah, you definitely want to, it's just that the standards that we have, like to have everything done. And anyway, in my understanding, that creates a giant barrier.
I'll bet Mayor's gonna give us some
Yes,
light.
please, Matt.
I will. I appreciate that. And thanks
Yeah.
for letting me just come up for a few responses. There's, I think, a bigger conversation about ODA, but I did want
Oh, yeah.
to respond to one piece of that initial comment about the grease traps that we
Oh, yeah.
have. Our engineering team has gone back. Those were requirements that came from the Central Weaver Sewer District. And so our team actually went back and worked with the district to come up with a compromise on
Right.
how they could meet a standard that was acceptable to the city without expending the entire amount on the standard that the
Mhm.
district had wanted. So I think we've already worked through a compromise and
And that
have,
was one example.
we have, well, it is, but it's an important one. And I just wanted to make sure before, because you're kind of perpetuating the old
Mhm.
situation that would often happen with a new, food-based establishment. But I think we've worked that through now and have a good path forward for those kinds of new businesses, especially when there is like reuse of
Yeah.
like an older restaurant or whatever that may not have a compliant grease trap. So I think we've worked that through. We worked specifically with a number of businesses that were under like the old framework to come up
Yeah.
with a plan that worked moving forward. Two other issues I wanted to address. One, what we're doing on the second floor process and give you an update for that. So when we have a new business, we invite them to come, and we have a lot of, like, they can make an appointment, and we've ramped up the concept review meeting that we have. And so we really do want to provide that kind of a roadmap or the guidebook for a new business, and so that they're alerted upfront to all of the various processes, whether and all the steps that they have to take with the city, or if there's external like Weaver Morgan Health Department, or whatever the requirements might be. We want to get that all out there at the beginning so that they have a path forward, and then they know who to work with, they know on our team, and they can come back as many times as they want. I would say the Cat Cafe, which is opening soon here, I've heard, but they've been a great example of a small business that was able to take advantage of our process and really worked from the very beginning with that team and had a good path forward. So I'm looking forward to their opening. And then secondly, with the second floor process, some other we've got a lot of advancements that are being made and implemented right now. And one of them, as far as making inspection appointments, we're moving to that online with like certain business types. But so sometimes contractors, you know, in the past, you'd have to call, you know, Monday through Friday during business hours to make appointments, and now you can do that online. So if you don't remember until Saturday, you don't have to, you know, wait until Monday, but you're like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting to do this, but then you can go online and make a request for an inspection. So that's gonna help a lot.
Yeah.
And then also just putting license types online, working as a team. We're also improving the whole process that you have to go through, working with all of our different internal city teams. So we have a weekly meeting to discuss new applications for, you know, the building permit side, but it also might involve a business license and all of that. So our team is all on the same page, and we want to make sure that the application is complete before, you know, before it gets moved forward. So we don't, sometimes in the past, we had complaints that they would submit something incomplete, but they wouldn't know it until a month or two down the line. And then now we're telling them that they didn't submit this particular drawing or they didn't fill out the form correctly or whatever. So we're really doing a lot on the city side to make sure that they're set up for success. Just fun to report that back. And we'll be doing more. We'll be getting out some, you know, public communication about those as we continue to move forward, but so that, you know, there's a recognition of some of these changes and how we're really trying to help small business.
Sounds great.
Thanks. And then anything else that I missed that you?
I was just gonna ask more about the landscaping. I mean,
Yeah, some of the landscaping, yeah.
would that be something that we'd have to change in an ordinance, or I don't know. I mean, it's not that I don't want the landscape to have to be done. It's just maybe a timing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something I can bring back to the team, and I can see what you're saying, but you know, like maybe just meeting some of the minimal, like just mowing down the weeds or whatever. but
Yeah.
Not having a.
Start the business, they can start getting some
Can that be
revenue in
detailed?
while they're trying to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I can bring back to the team.
But
It's nice, yeah.
but the city's requirement, Roy's is the same, Brigham's is the same, Layton is the same. If you're doing improvements, you still have to fund the escrow on landscaping.
Yeah.
But that's if you're purchasing a building. These are.
Renting, yeah, most of them are renting.
Right? I mean,
I don't know about renting, I just know about purchasing and re-landscaping.
Yeah, we.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's.
This is an idea. I appreciated that they
Is there a way
brought up
to-
some ideas. You know, it wasn't just a complaint fest.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because there are people that really want to start these businesses, you know,
Yeah,
they just don't have a lot of
we want them to.
know-how.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that conversation.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing it up.
I have a question. Has anybody received anything from Weaver Base about the watershed tour yet?
I didn't see anything.
It's on the 24th, so if we had to call them and see anything.
What information do you want?
When it is, how we sign up, well, not when, but you know, how we sign up, just the details. So we can,
Where to meet?
yeah, well, I kind of probably got a good idea, but I think they probably want you to register, not just
You
show up.
choose like different.
Did you check their
It's only
website?
one place, I can't remember.
No,
No, check really quick.
Anything else? I think,
If it's not there, we'll find out for you, Rich.
we were gonna go there and didn't for the botanical garden up there. Did we reschedule it or just?
I haven't rescheduled it.
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Let's see, I'm just looking up. Yeah, I'm not seeing it on their website, at least on their calendar. So.
We haven't heard much about how Flip Your Strip is going. I wonder, if we could get an update on that. I don't know. Speaking of landscaping.
Mhm.
We will be talking next week about some landscaping amendments
Maybe
to the new construction.
Single family.
So Barton will be here. He can, of course, that's not Barton, that's the utilities, right? So.
Department, yeah, would present that.
Right, but they're asking about the flip your
Wonder if
strip thing.
anybody's still using it, if it's working.
I think
We-
it was, my understanding was we had a lot of people wanting to do it. And so we got we initiated the ordinance too late for people to do it in the spring. It was already hot when we got our
Last year.
ordinance done. And then everybody lost interest. I don't think there many people did it.
Mm.
A lot of people turned their front yard into rocks,
Mm-hmm.
but weren't a lot of.
Oh, I don't know how to get people to stop doing that.
I know.
I mean, I could just walk around my neighborhood and like
Yeah.
snap pictures of. Like, am I supposed to be code enforcing everybody? I don't
Well,
know.
the ones that did it a couple of years ago, it's rocks and weeds.
Yeah, they haven't, they were supposed, I thought they were supposed to put in plants, like, you know,
Yeah.
I think when we reported it, then they're like, oh yeah, they have been told, but I don't know if people, I don't know. I don't know what happens.
I'll give a preliminary report on the water barrel, the rain barrel thing if you want. I got my rain barrel. I installed the rain barrel before the rain we had at the end of May. I learned that on my particular roof, I only have to get 1/10 of an inch of rain to fill that barrel up.
Nice.
I also learned it's kind of a pain to drain that barrel. And
Reset mine up, yeah.
but it hasn't rained since. So I've got not one drop in there since that. So I'm keeping track of all the rain events
Really?
for the summer to see how much water you actually get out of them.
Yeah, I've been using it to water plants.
How do you use yours? I mean, do you try and
Well,
right away, or do you just,
it's just been in there. I know it's been overflowing since the winter, because I had it all winter too.
right?
But the problem is I didn't set it up high enough, so the hose and everything, so I just opened it up and I've been dunking my bucket in there to water my flowers. But that works. I want to use it all up so that I can reset it up so that I
Yeah.
can use the hose.
I put a rain gauge on the side, or a gallons gauge on the side, thinking that it might not fill up, but turns out it doesn't take much rain to fill it up. So,
Yeah, I know mine's been overflowing.
yeah,
I sent you that calculation on how to
Yeah.
figure that out.
yeah.
Cool.
Doesn't,
So I was pleasantly surprised at that.
Yeah.
So did you have, there's like a screen
Mhm.
on the top
Mhm.
that kind of filters, leaves and
Dunk out,
anything
yeah.
that comes off. It doesn't take very long for that to clog up. Asphalt shingles and a little
I
bit.
don't have asphalt shingles, and I also have gutter screens, so I don't get junk in there.
I don't get a lot of mine either. Maybe it's just because you have
Right.
so many trees. My house is very tall. I don't have
Clogs really
many
quick,
trees that are
yeah.
up on top of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that, I can see that could be a problem.
Dave's got a few trees around his place.
Few.
yeah, yeah. It's like a tree in a tree house.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
The,
Let's eat.
We adjourned,
Yes.
I believe.
the yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
Okay.
All right, then.
Oh.